We're going to show you our process that uses our stencils in order to create different patterns. And the stencils are nice because it gives you a way to get a little bit different look than just doing your basic knockdown texture. Your prep is going to be exactly the same first. You're going to patch your holes, fix your cracks, apply your vapor shield first. Then just like you saw when we did the base coat on the knockdown texture, the first thing you're going to do is get your base coat down. So you're going to have a surface like this once your base coat is down and dry. So instead of spraying the texture like we did before, the first thing we're going to do over this is apply the stencil. But they do come packaged flat in a box. They're not a roll, so they're very easy once they get out to the field. You remove the adhesive from the back, and then you lay it out in the pattern. If you're doing a pattern like this, like a flagstone pattern, you can, even once you get this laid out, if you wanted to create some larger stones in there, you can then go with a knife and then you can go ahead and cut some of those and remove some of those to create more of a random pattern and to create some larger stones in there. Now typically once you get the stencil down, you've got your whole area covered with the stencil. Usually the first thing we're going to do from this step is to use the hopper gun to fill it all in. You can trowel it, but the problem is if you start troweling, and you can see you're never going to get 100% where this is stuck down. And if you start troweling on top of this, you can start pushing some material underneath, and then you'll get some bleed through. So a lot of times what they'll do is once they get this laid out, just take the hopper, spray over the top, fill it all in. That way it locks the stencil in there. So what he's going to do now, he's got the pattern on there. He's going to go ahead and spray it with the hopper gun and just kind of fill that in. When we do this, they'll use two different colors because our top coat comes in different colors. It comes in a light gray, comes in a sunrise gray, comes in a natural gray, comes in a sandstone. So a lot of times you use two different colors like that. So once you pull the tape, once you start applying your stain, it's always going to look a little bit different in the grout joints because the grout joints are a different color than what's on the top surface. So that's why a lot of guys use our top coat for doing stencils because you typically are using two different colors. You can see here's the tool I mentioned called the dash brush. It's just like a big paintbrush. He's just going to dip it into the top coat material. He's going to kind of just let it splatter around on there a little bit, and then he's going to trowel it to give it the texture that he's looking for. And you could even use another color here. You could even use a third color. So when you go to stain over the top of that, it'll really have a lot of depth and dimension because your base coat underneath can be even a different color than the grout and a different color than what you do on the top. So even if you did it that way, you can apply one color stain over the top, but it's going to look variegated throughout the whole thing because it has the different colors underneath there. So that's pretty much it to create the texture on there. Then you have to let that dry, and then you'll start pulling the stencil. You can see the stencil pulls up, it pulls the material off of the top with it, and then that's what leaves your pattern behind. And it's not something you need to pull right away. Sometimes we make these boards, they might sit in here for months before we do a demo, and it still pulls up fairly easy. And then once you pull your stencil, you're going to need to go and just clean that off a little bit, sweep it real good, hit it with a blower, get all that loose material off of there before you go ahead and start applying your stains. Now a lot of times on a flagstone pattern like this, what looks good, I think we're going to do on this is to do like three different colors. Color a few of the stones one color, a few more a separate color, a few more a third color. And then at the end we do a color wash where we take one color, spray it on, hit it with a little bit of water and wash over the whole thing. And then that blends it all together and gives it a real good uniform look. The staining process is where you need to have somebody on the crew that has a good eye for colors. As far as doing the application stuff, fairly simple, but once you get to the staining, somebody has to have a pretty good eye for colors and how they kind of blend together. Now, last thing he's going to do is spray the charcoal gray on there and then spray a little bit of water over the top. Maybe hit it with a sponge or a broom. So now he sprayed the charcoal gray on there. He's going to take a little broom and kind of broom that in to blend it all together. And then just let it dry. And you can see we'll set it off to the side, and when it dries, it'll definitely lighten up some. And then from there, you'll be ready to go ahead and apply a sealer to that.